Alright guys, welcome back. Sorry I don't have any like dramatic lighting or anything today. The garage door is open behind me because it's a beautiful day outside and I need to go out there to work on some of this brass. So today I'm going to be making some fore-end weights for this MDT chassis, and I'm going to make it out of some brass stock that I ordered on Amazon. So you can order your own brass pieces off of Amazon for pretty cheap, or eBay even. So some places sell cutoffs from factories or warehouses or whatever of like leftover material they have. So if you can find stuff that's around the size you need, you can get it for a really good deal. Or you can just kind of search around for the size you need. Typically, when I've been searching, at least, I can never find anything that's like the right size. So I always just order something a little bit bigger and then I just cut it down and make it work. So you can do it yourself for a lot cheaper, and especially if you don't mind it looking a little bit home done. I especially like to do this for the internal weights because nobody's ever going to see those ones, so those are a really easy one to make your own, and even if they don't look perfect, that's okay because they're kind of hidden away on the inside of the chassis. Alright, so after you're done with that, the next part is going to be threading the brass piece to be able to screw in from underneath of the chassis. So underneath here, just like how you would mount the MDT version of the weight, you would screw it in the bottom here and that locks it into the chassis. So since I don't have any of that, I went to Home Depot again. I got these 8x32 kind of beveled machine screws, and then I got the appropriate drill bit and die or tap that I will need to thread this to be able to make it just as solid as the regular one would be. So in the past, I've only ever used the kind of two-part version of tapping system. So you have a drill bit and then you have the piece that you hand thread the threads into. So I've always done it like that by hand in the past, and then Milwaukee came out with this kind of one-piece solution where it's a drill bit and threads the pitch all in one. So I'm going to give this a go. I don't know if it's going to be as precise, but I'm going to try it out because it would save a ton of time. Alright, so I measured and I cut that brass piece down to the size I needed. I kind of beveled the edges a little bit so it wasn't so sharp, and now I'm going to put it in the chassis, take a Sharpie or a pin, and mark out where the screw holes need to go, and then I'm going to get going with this drill bit and get this thing threaded in. So I just have a dry erase pen. I couldn't find a Sharpie, but it should be okay. So I'm just going to make sure I hold this in the right orientation and then make sure I give it a good mark where these holes are. So I'm just going to have to take it out to the vise and make sure I can try to drill these as evenly as possible and go from there. Alright, so there you go. So I don't need to keep filming how I do the rest of these. It's just the same process. So I have 2 more, so I'll put them in this middle section here. And I mean, this thing's solid already, but once I do that, I go in from the top typically, or back through, and I Loctite all of these because I have had one of the weights, the screws come loose on one of my other ones before, so I just like to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these. You're not really going to be adjusting them a whole lot, like obviously once you put them in, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so that's it. That is how you can make your own internal weight. Alright guys, so I got that internal weight finished up, so that's just a really easy way how you can do it. Just to follow up about that drill bit, that thing actually worked super well, and it was super quick. Obviously it does everything for you. I didn't know that it also bevels the entry point as well. I didn't really need that specifically in this, but I can think of some other projects that I've done in the past that would have been really handy instead of having to get a different drill bit again, so 3 different drill bits to do that process. So this kind of does a 3-in-1, and it was really easy with the impact. So I would highly recommend looking at one of these if you're planning on doing this, because it was really helpful. So that's kind of it. I'm ready to start scuffing up this chassis to get it ready for Cerakote, and I'm going to show you guys how I Cerakote my own stuff at home using the Cerakote Air Cure series. So it's the C series from Cerakote, and it's the Air Cure. And what's awesome about it is you don't need a compressor either. You can use the Preval spray cans, I think that's what they're called. So you can do all of that from home, and I've done it in the past and it's turned out really well, so I'm hoping it'll do well on this as well. So I just need to get it torn down, scuffed up, cleaned with acetone, and get it painted a different color, or get it coated a different color. Something else that came in that I'm super stoked about is this one-piece top rail from a guy out in Australia. He, I guess, designed this and had it machined. He did a pretty low batch, I think like 20 or 30. And so there's not many of these out there. I don't know if he's continuing to make them or anything, but this is a single piece top rail for the ACC Elite chassis, and I thought it was awesome, so I jumped on that, ordered it. He does do Cerakoting, that's his main business, I believe, but the DRS Pro is not FDE. It's like anodized kind of FDE bronze color. It's not the same as FDE. So if you have a regular chassis that's not the DRS Pro Airgun, then he can match it to whatever you have. So he can do the black, the FDE, and I'm pretty sure he can make whatever other color you need as well. But I just ordered a raw one, so this is just raw aluminum that's sandblasted, and then I can go ahead and get it ready to go. So I'm really stoked how this thing is coming together, and I'm planning on getting this together and finished by my first match at the end of the month, and then I'll have a little bit more time to play with it, getting ready for RMAC, the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge. So that's coming up in the end of June, and I'm pretty stoked. This is going to be the first year that I can make it, and I'm planning on competing in the PRS style competition. I have not practiced any of the other disciplines like bench thrust or anything. I don't think this is really an ideal setup for that anyway. So I'm pretty stoked about that regardless. We're going to make the trip out from Oregon, so it's going to be a long road trip, but I'm pretty excited. So stay tuned for the next couple of videos where I get this ready to Cerakote, and then I start doing a little bit of other modifications. If you watched my other videos, I just finished beveling this out for a 28 mil gauge and widened this recess in the back for the trigger, or the hammer spring adjustment, sorry. And those turned out really well. I'm pretty stoked to have kind of a different setup than everyone else will have Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.